I think it actually makes it better. It's like, oh
Right.
man, we got a little bit of fall scene going on.
Hmm.
Adds a lot to it. But how you been?
So far, so good, man. Just finished a long, long day of work. I've been at it since like 7 a.m. So I'm tired, but I'm excited for this. I'm drinking a glass of wine, about to get some dinner after this. So it's looking good. I'm
I
feeling good.
appreciate you coming on, man. You got a busy schedule and busy life.
100%, 100%. How are the deliveries going? I know we had to push it a little bit because you were running late.
Yeah, man. It was one of those things where like I had one, I got a couple coming back to back that was like, 'cause I do it for Uber, so I'm doing deliveries and rides. So like I'll get a mix of the two, and like certain times when I get one that's like too good to be true, I'm like, all right, I gotta take this one, and then it might take
Yeah,
me like another like 20 minutes out the way,
to
and I'm
come
like, oh
back.
shoot, I got a podcast I gotta do, but like I really need this money too. It's like that the constant chase of like taking something and taking something that you need for the time, like
Yeah.
the I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I do know what you're trying to say. Do they tell you how long it's gonna take? Like, do they give you an estimated
They give us an
or
estimate, but it doesn't count in the restaurant's time. So if a restaurant's backed up, I'm
mm,
just there, and it's like
you gotta
that's they
wait.
can't
Yeah,
account for it. I got to account for it.
I feel you.
Or if I can't find the restaurant, or if I can't find the house, so it's like a whole lot of stuff. But
I
I'm
feel
working on my
you.
online training business too, so like eventually, like I'll be done this delivery bullshit. But
Are you gonna be doing like
process.
Zoom workouts with people?
That's what I'm trying to debate. Like, I don't know if I want to do the Zoom stuff. Like, I might have them just send them like programs to do on their own, like programs and food things. Because like the Zoom thing is still like such a time commitment. And I'm like, I don't mind doing it,
Yeah.
but I also don't want to be like married to my screen all the time now too. 'Cause I'm training this person, this person. So
Yeah.
like at a certain point, I'm gonna have to find a way to like do both. And there's a lot of coaches that don't always like they'll do like a Zoom call like once a week to check form or like to talk to them. But
Yeah.
a lot of the ones just like have you do the program, you guys email back and forth, so it's a little bit more freedom. It's not as much.
Dude, that's what I did. So in the summer of 2019, I connected with this guy in Australia who was helping me work on a lot of the injuries I had. And
Nice.
so basically what we would do is we would do a Skype twice a month, and then he gave me a program to do. And it was even better than that because basically I would send him videos of me doing the exercises, and then he would give me feedback over email. And then during the one-on-ones, we would have like an hour-long session and we would go deep. And the structure was like perfect for me, because like it wasn't too expensive because we only met every so often, and just like the consistent feedback over video was so helpful. And so there's a lot of really interesting ways to do that model that can be really, really helpful for
Yeah,
people.
there is. So I've been like I bought a couple. I'm going to buy a couple courses on it, and like I've been researching stuff online. So like playing with my own formula plus like other people's formula. Just kind of process of give and take and kind of learning how to do it. But I'm excited, man, because like I don't think it appears that we're going to be doing this for a lot longer than we thought.
For sure, for sure. I was just thinking about this today. I've been in a space for this last month where it's kind of been like vaccine or bust, and
Hmm.
then I read a few articles about the fact that SARS and MERS, which came out in the 2000s,
Yep.
we still don't have vaccine for those, to this day. And so it's very, very possible that we may never have an effective coronavirus vaccine. And I was just kind of like, wow, we might just have to start living our lives differently. So.
Yeah, which is insane, man. Like it's so crazy how all this could happen, and it's like I don't even know. Like it's crazy because like I don't even know what else they can change. Like what's the next step? What else they're gonna lock into or not lock into? And it's just
Yeah, I
like
mean, I think my hope is that I think at this point we just need a treatment, right? Like if we can get to a point where no one is dying from this, then we can kind of get back to a place where life is a little bit more normal, right?
hmm
Because if we can be confident that if you get the coronavirus, you might get sick, but they'll give you some type of cocktail in the hospital that'll make sure you don't die, then I think we can get back to a better place. I feel like that's even more important than the vaccine, just because this thing spreads so quickly, and there are hella people that aren't going to take the vaccine. So that's my hope, is we just come up with a treatment for it.
yeah, like we need something, man, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff, a lot of things are changing, and just like so much stuff happening. Like
Yeah.
it's fucking crazy, dude. It's
Yeah,
fucking
man.
crazy. But yeah, man, how's work for you, man? Like you got the new job now. Like what you told me you went from doing the voice thing and then you're doing sales for
Plaid.
like a tech thing.
Yeah, man. Hmm. So this is an interesting time for our business. Basically, Plaid is how you connect your bank account to Venmo, right?
Right.
So
That's what it was. It was.
when you get Venmo or Cash App, you got to connect your bank account so you can fund it and then start sending people money. And so for us, like coronavirus has been a boom time because for the first time ever, you can't go into your bank branch either because it's closed or because you don't want to go because you're scared or because they're going to make you wear a mask. And so we have a lot of clients that are basically just digital banks, neo banks. And so we've seen like a really, like we had our best quarter ever this past quarter during
Wow.
coronavirus. And so that's really interesting. And then my job is basically sales. Like I'm talking to people, having that first conversation. If they're a potential customer, flipping them to an account executive. And so my day is a lot of this. Like that's why the setup is like so. I've got it down because I'm on like 8 to 9 calls a day, just talking to people and then just flipping them over
Wow.
to an
So
account
you
executive.
got it down packed, man.
Yeah, man, this is my life now. Podcasting 24/7.
That's fucking awesome. How is your podcast? You still doing the fade? Like, what's the consistency on that like right now?
It's been so because of coronavirus, I got really deep into it during coronavirus because I had
Mm-hmm.
the extra time. But then we transitioned into this period after George Floyd where a lot of my focus just shifted. Like I
Mm-hmm.
spent a lot of time reading and learning, and I've started doing this thing on Instagram where I'll go live for like 20 to 30 minutes on the
I've seen some
weekend.
of those.
Yeah, and just like talk my shit about everything that's happening. And that's just become like way more important to me than the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, my cadence has gone from doing like maybe 3 episodes a week to like one every 2 weeks.
Nice.
So it's still something I care about. It's something I'm trying to keep as a part of my life, but it's just fallen pretty low on the priority list. And so for me, like, my job takes up so much of my time.
Mm-hmm.
And then other than that, like this is a conversation that we were having the last time we went live. I'm just like not judging myself in terms of the content because with everything that's going on, there are just some days where I'm like, fuck it, I don't want to go live, I don't want to create, I don't want to do anything. And then there are some days where I do want to, and on those days, that's when I create. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I feel you 100% on that, man. Like it's such a process of like knowing when to go and when not to go, and then because it's always there and you can always do better, but it's like putting in the work. Like, do you want to put in that work today? I I think I literally took a break from podcasting like the first half of this year, and like I just started putting them out again now. So like I feel you, man. Like taking that little break when you need to is like such a putting your focus somewhere else when you have to is such an important thing. And like whether it be in fitness or life, like it's just like such a thing. Like you're always gonna be not where you want to be somewhere and where you want to be somewhere else. And it's always gonna constantly be changing. So,
Yeah.
don't get mad at where you are and just kind of keep going, man. That's like Gary's like biggest thing. And like it took me a while to understand that. Like I definitely like embody that now a lot more in myself. And I see you got it in you too.
Yeah, man, you can't have everything you want all the time, always. You know, there's always going to be something that's missing, and there's always going to be something that you're taking for granted that you have at the moment.
100%, man. Like 100%. Like there's just like I'm definitely like I'm not as fit as I'd like to be at the moment right now at all, just because I can't, like, the gyms and stuff aren't open and doing work. I've been training at home, but it's just not the same. I don't even have the same motive. Even like finding the right motivation to like get into a good home workout is like
Yeah.
it's like
Well, it's tough too because we're used to the thing about working out is like if you've been in one space all day and you've been sitting down, like you want to move and go somewhere to work out. It's really hard to switch up and be
it
like, oh, now
is.
I'm gonna fucking go hard in this room where I've been sitting all day doing work.
It is, man. And like finding that shift of like mental shift is so like I'm still trying to figure out how to get it, man. 'Cause I'm just like, fuck, I have to be in this fucking like I just edited this video for fucking 3 hours and now I gotta
Yeah.
work out and I'm like, I don't want to fucking work out. Let me just eat these fucking chips. And it's
Yep.
like, no, like it takes me so much longer to get a good session in. So I'm gonna try out bringing my stuff outside and just working out like somewhere
Yeah.
outside by me, like a park or
Get some
something,
sun.
and just try to do that because just that chain of scenery will shift my mindset. But
Yeah.
it's
Dude,
fucking work,
I
dude.
saw in your story like you were in a gym at some point, like when they
Yes, I
opened up.
was.
So did it
Mhm.
close immediately?
Yeah, they just closed everything again this week. Like
Gotcha.
Monday
Gotcha.
this week, they said they're closing everything
Because
again.
of
So like,
Newsom's new order. Yeah.
hmm
Gotcha. Yeah,
yeah,
man.
man,
California, we're going through it.
we are, man. We fucking are, and it's just like, Oh man, dude, I've been having so much just like I've been doing good as far as mentally I've been fine, but there's just so many things going on, with the protest and like with coronavirus and just taking care of my own health, putting out content, like the whole game of just like growing and developing in 2020 is just so fun, man. And then like I don't even know, man. It's just so many things I'm trying to like discover, There's something like
Yeah.
I still have so much time because like I'm still working, but like I still make my own schedule. So it's like what can I do next to get better,
Right.
And like it's just relaxing. It's just a fun game, man, of just progressing this year.
I feel you. Have you been listening to Tea with Gary Vee at all?
I haven't watched any of T with Gary V's. Like I see the clips, but like that's one thing. Like I used to be like all my Gary Vee shit all the time, and then like within the second half of 2020, like I'll see a click I'll like, but I haven't like watched any of them.
Gotcha. I'm gonna send you a 30-minute podcast that was like it really opened my eyes to a lot of things. Basically, something that I've been thinking about a lot, and this is related to a post I put up on Instagram, is just it was the one that I said we were gonna talk about, basically, like when you have these conversations in your head where you're writing the script for both people. That train of thought started from something that Gary said, where basically he was like, a lot of people who think that they're negative are actually just fearful, right? And I realized that a lot of the people that I deem as quote unquote negative, I'm actually just kind of afraid of, and a lot of that stems from these conversations I have in my head that are scripted, where I'm writing their script for them and I'm putting words in their mouth that don't actually exist. And so basically, I'm going to send you the episode because I think it could be a really, really interesting listen based on everything that you said, like so much going on, so much to think about. I think a lot of us are scared right now, and I think a lot of us that are feeling down about things are really just kind of like anxious about the future, just because there's so much uncertainty that's happening.
I agree with that. I agree with that a lot. So I'll definitely send me an episode because I need to hear it. Like Gary always definitely fixes my mental space 100%. Like he's always just like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I need to hear this today.
And specifically, the reason I like Tea with Gary Vee is because it's not just him like just ranting, right? Like it's always somebody who came to him with like a very personal issue. And what's great about this episode specifically is the guy got really, really deep into his own self. Like he admitted a lot of his own insecurities. And then
Really?
Gary, and that's the whole thing with Tea with Gary Vee. That's why it's different than a lot of his other content, because people just ask questions. And this guy specifically just kind of like poured his heart out, and then Gary got to a new place. It was one of those moments where Gary said something he's never said before, and so it was kind of a big episode for me. So I'm gonna send it to you. I would love to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, definitely, man. Have you had to have any like good conversations over the past couple weeks or everything going on?
Let's see. I've had a lot of good conversations about Black Lives Matter with my Black friends and family members.
Nice.
One thing that I need to work on is, I think, just having conversations about racism with people who aren't Black, which
Mm,
I'm not like, I just don't feel comfortable doing. I think because, one, what I said before, I will make a lot of assumptions about what they would have to say, which
hmm
makes me scared to have that conversation. And then two, I just don't think I'm like in a comfortable enough space to start that conversation. But I think it's something that needs to happen, because like this fear that we have about talking about race is like part of the reason that it is able to be perpetuated,
That's very true.
And so that's something that I need to work on. Yeah.
That's very true. One of the things I actually wanted to do with this podcast, like coming into it, was like I kind of wanted to get like a base crew that I knew and kind of hear their thoughts. Whatever. One thing I want to talk to, like one thing I plan on doing with this podcast as it progresses is like just talking to people about with different opinions of like, because I just want to see like some of the things that people are like some people that are like people that are racist. Some people like the way I see it now is that, like certain people out there like there's like legit racist people, and there's
Hmm.
people that are just like that are ignorant, or they just don't know what's going on, or they don't understand what's happening. And I
Hmm.
want to see like what they're thinking, or like where their reality is mentally. Because there's a lot
Yeah.
of different conversations that need to be happening, and like if we're not talking to each other, we're not going to change anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing I've been thinking a lot about is obviously people who are like very vehemently racist. Like I think one thing that I've learned over this past month is that there's way more people who hate Black people in America than I thought. You know?
Really?
Yeah, way more than I thought. Like just all the things that I'm seeing on Twitter and TikTok, in regards to like lynchings and just like random Black people being like violently oppressed, not even by police officers, but just by other white people in this country. That's kind of shocked me to learn how much more of those people there are than I thought. And then another thing kind of related to your earlier point is like, I think there's a lot of people who would not call themselves racist, but that benefit from these systems. And even I'm one of those people. Like, colorism is something I've been thinking about a lot. The benefits I have of being of lighter skin and how I'm complicit in certain systemic oppression because of that. And I think that's a conversation that we all need to start having on an individual level, about those of us who are obviously not racist but benefit from the systems in place. Because if we are ever to get to a better place, we have to give up power. That's the thing that I've been thinking about a lot. Like, those in power have to give up some of their power if we are ever get to a place where it is more equal under the law.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of gems right there, man. That's a lot of gems. Cause damn, hold on. There was like three different things I wanted to like get into that with. That was good though.
Yeah, man.
First, yeah, the colorism thing is definitely like a bigger thing. I didn't really think about it, to be honest, until like I saw a post and I was like, yeah, I guess that is the thing. Or like the treatment of Black women in society, like that's definitely like a thing where I'm like, yeah, even like in my school, like Black dudes were definitely like the cool. Like, it was just cool to be. But where I went to school, like, it was cool to be the Black kid. But I don't think Black girls got the same treatment that Black men did.
Definitely not.
Um, and colorism, that's definitely huge. As far as like the racist content, I haven't seen that much. I don't know if I'm not following the right page. I don't know. Like, I haven't seen, like, I guess it depends on where. I don't, I don't know where the other. Like, I haven't seen as much stuff as like I'd like to see. I want to see like enough of what's going on, because you only see what you know and what's in like your feed
Yeah.
and what's in like the realm that you know. And there's so many things going on that like are outside of my realm or outside of my thoughts that I just want to kind of get in and like just see, because one, like, the biggest thing this has taught me is that you just don't know what people don't know. And like,
Yeah.
you just like empathy of knowing what other people are doing and like what they live like, regardless of like Black, white, like status, rich, poor. Like, there's just like, you just never know what someone else is doing or where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So like, I think there's a lot of people that are fighting right now and like at each other's throats, that are looking at the same thing but not looking at they're not looking at it the same. They're fighting over the one thing, but they're not fighting for the same thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people are getting caught up in semantics.
Yes.
That's a big thing. And then to answer your earlier point, like, I need to stay off of Twitter, man. I spend too much time on Twitter. Basically every basically every lunch I'll go on Twitter trending, and so that's where I see a lot of this stuff.
Oh.
If you look at the trending things on Twitter, like 1 to 20, almost every day something's happening, and so I'll get into a little thread where I'll read all the comments, and it can get really frustrating. And so I've actually, over this past few weeks, gotten much better at like limiting my consumption of Twitter, just because it can become like really disheartening. Um, yeah.
How do you feel as being a creator, like, of, because you put out content, so like the ratio of putting out content to consuming content, how do you find that? What's that balance for you like?
It's gotten more consuming over the past year, really, than creating, which I think is okay. Like, back to like not judging yourself. Like, I think there's no need to talk unless you have something to say. And so for me, so much going on, so many people voicing their opinions. I want to be very strategic about the things I'm saying, especially because, like, the way I think about content nowadays is not just to like, what am I posting today, but like, how is this going to be received by future generations? Like, that's something I think about a lot, like, for real. Just because I think I understand that 2020 is a year like no other. Like, I
Yes,
think this is like the Civil War. This is like World War II. Like, this is our generation's World War II, to put
it
it in
is.
perspective. And unlike previous generations, the boomers who lived through World War II, they couldn't document their thoughts. And
They
so
could not.
when I create content, I'm creating it with the perspective that people are going to be watching this for a long, long time, and not being like I'm going to be so big, I'm going to have such a legacy like a Gary. But like my great grandchildren might be watching this piece of content. And so I'm trying to be very, very strategic about the things that I say. And so to answer your question, like very little content I'm putting out, but the shit that I put out, like that's the shit that I really fucking mean and believe. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's spot on. I agree, man. This is one of those times where like everything you say will be seen and like put into like future generations. It's one of the things that's going to really, people are really going to see, like, you know, that you're literally documenting the time of like what it will be. Like you can make it into the history books, you know what I mean? Like something you put in whatever or the history video, whatever the fuck they have, like the history time thing has potential to show tweets from 2020, or like it's going to be, it's historical things, and they're all public now too. So it's not even like your message could be taken and put into it, and you know it's in a little data chip in the future or something. So it's very
Yeah.
true. Having the power right now and making sure you're putting things that will stand the test of time is super important. I think about that a lot now too. I'm like, damn, like what would I say? How would I say this? And it's just like, yeah, man, there's just so many different avenues of things going on. Um, Fuck yeah, like it's just a lot. It's a lot, and Twitter's definitely. I didn't use Twitter that much, to be honest, over the past couple of years, because like I had it when it first came out, and then I stopped. Then like I slowly, like this year is probably the most I ever used Twitter,
Yeah.
and it actually slowly is becoming like my favorite app.
Really?
Yeah, because I just like it because like you can just put so much stuff out. It's just like a good volume platform.
Yeah.
So I don't like some of the things I put out. I'll just put like a genuine, like a have a good day, just something like, you know, make someone feel better if they saw it. So like, because you know there's so much bullshit out there that if you see something that makes you feel better, it's like just something good
Yeah.
to have in there, you know. But I do like the fact that it is such, the good news and the bad news of Twitter is that, you know, how Gary talks about, it's like the water cooler of our country. So
Society.
you can kind of jump into conversations and talk about things, and you know people are constantly just like, but it's also like a battlefield at the same time, which is pretty cool. And one of the, just to like to piggyback off what you said, one of the days I saw a video of it was some lady, and she said something. It was one of those videos that was like, it was like, yeah, this lady's racist or something. She I think some dude was, somebody painted black, a guy painted Black Lives Matter on his house.
Okay.
And this lady was like saying, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have that on your house." And, and it was his house. And then the caption was like, "Karen yells at dude for putting stuff on his house," and she shouldn't have did that. And her husband was in the background like, rah, 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 rah. And her husband got fired from his job for being in that clip. And I tweeted them. I was like, I definitely, like, they never should have said any of that, like, to that person at all. Like, that was stupid. They should have left him alone. They don't know
Yeah.
who that is, whose property is. Then I was like, should that guy have lost his job though? I tweeted that like into like the thread, and I got killed. They were like, you love your oppressor. Yes, racists got to end. You're an
Yeah.
idiot. You're dumb. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow, this is like the, because I don't have enough followers on Twitter to know like what like the Twitter rage was like. And I was like, oh shit, I'm getting
Yeah.
attacked right now. Like, and it was cool. It was interesting to see how like fast that, like, you can just go and just be you can just go and be the spark that lets off like a whole chain. Like for the next like 4 days, I was getting like retweet this and retweet that. And it was very interesting to see like how fast like the Wild West of Twitter can come out. And what was I going with this? It was just
Well, dude, people are waiting to attack.
they
You
are.
know, you have to think about like the state of America right now. Everybody's at home. Everybody's been at home. Everybody's struggling with mental health. And so when they see someone they don't agree with, they're ready to attack. What's interesting about this case, though, is it doesn't even sound like you gave an opinion. Like you
I
just kind of
didn't.
asked a question.
And they were like, and they just attacked me. And I was like, I knew when I sent that tweet, I knew what I was getting into. I was like, I'm perfectly fine. Like I'm a grown ass man, and their words are not going to hurt me. But it was interesting to see. I knew that reaction was going to happen, but I didn't know to what extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, just to show like how the times are right now. Like people are ready to go at each other's throats, like at any moment.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's just interesting to see like that's how people are right now. You know, like 2020 is really just like a go get them kind of year.
Were there any of the commenters that like maybe changed your perspective on that video? Like, were there any that weren't just kind of like, coming at your character, but just kind of like got you to think about it a little differently?
There was one who was like, the best one that I saw, he said that, oh, like this person, this guy in this position is obviously a racist. And if he's has these thoughts and he's in that position, he's oppressing someone who's underneath him in that job, or if you apply for that job. And I definitely like I agree with that and I agree with that mindset of like, okay, if someone's doing this thing, he probably isn't the nicest person to POV or POC with that. But I also wanted to know, because the one thing that I'm watchful now with this mentality of what we're doing. I just don't want the wrong people to start getting attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know, like I'm not like that one video is its own
Right.
scenario, but as far as like people being put in scenarios where they're doing something or saying something, and then they're instantly just like, oh, that person's a racist, and then they just lose their job, like their whole life. And then with that, what I'm afraid is going to happen is that people are going to end up becoming like evil, like closet racists. You know what I mean? Because like obviously, like things that are not brought into the light end up just hiding in the darkness, and they're way scarier in the dark than they are. Like the whole thing about silence being part of the problem, and
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing I've really been like thinking about. I want to hear some of your thoughts. What do you think about some of the things going on like that right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is like cancel culture has on Twitter particularly. This has been a really big topic. Like Nick Cannon got killed 2 days ago because he said some apparently anti-Semitic stuff.
Yeah,
I saw some clips. I don't have enough information to speak on that case in
same.
particular. But then there's someone from the New York Times. I believe her first name is Barry. She just quit the New York Times because she felt like she was being canceled within the organization. And look, I mean, most of the people who are crying out about cancel culture, a lot of them are racist and a lot of them are on the right. But I do think that you have a really important point where it's like, where are we going if we're just canceling everyone for one thing that they say? Will that lead to people just closeting their very racist, very homophobic, very sexist views? That's one side of it. There's another side of it where I do feel like one of the weapons that we have against homophobic, sexist, and racist people is to shame them out of existence and to shame them out of power. And so I really do think it's a delicate balance that I don't have a clear answer for. You
I don't
know,
have clearance for it either.
like most of the people who get canceled, I feel like they deserve it. And then there's another side of me that's like, but every one of us has done something or said something that we can be canceled for. And so like where do we go with that? My hope, and this is something that I get from Gary a lot, is that like once we get to a place where we understand that all of us, like think about this, once we get to a place where everybody's been canceled for something they've said or done, like where do we go then? Like do we get to a more empathetic place where we actually just kind of like understand that everyone has a skeleton in the closet? I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be a cool place to be. And I agree with that. A lot of the people out there, like a lot of the bad people have been taken out. But I'm always just like, okay, I'm always watching like what like the alternative is. I like play devil's advocate and like a lot of things just to see what the other side of the coin is like.
Yeah.
Like another thing that I was talking with someone before was about the whole mask thing. Now,
Yeah.
how do you feel about the mask situation?
So like I think a good example is Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is basically at war with China right now. They're mass protests. But we don't need to get deep into that. The point I'm making there is like people in Hong Kong have been out and about, right? But their coronavirus cases are dramatically low because like 99% of them wear masks. So my thing is like I think America was fucked from the beginning because we have this culture that is so anti-government versus all of these other countries in the East where they're just so used to taking directives from the government. Wearing a mask is just like not a big deal at all. And
Hmm.
so I think we're at a point where I don't want to be the guy that's yelling at people for not wearing a mask while they're running. But what I will do is I'm going to wear a mask all the time, always, to try to encourage other people to do it. Because for me, it's a fucking non-debate. Wearing a mask is something that we should be doing. I just don't want to be the guy that's like hating other people for not doing it. That's kind of
Hmm.
where I'm at.
Hmm. I yeah, I think the American culture of like fuck the government is definitely like it's definitely in us. We're like a very like stand up for what we believe in us. And the same thing is that devil advocate thing. Like sometimes it helps us, other times it's us to a fault. And I was talking to someone because I've been talking to other people who like against it too, and I was trying to figure out what like their thought processes were. And a lot of them are just more well, obviously like the mass itself, is to keep the spread of the disease, keeping us together and sane and healthy, it's for our own
Mhm.
health, for help for ourselves. But to the people that are against it, what like one of their biggest things is that they just don't like the idea of the conformity of it because they to them it's like I don't they feel like it's it's an infringement on their rights. And I'm like, okay, like I understand that because you're not supposed to be telling people what to wear. Like that's
Mhm.
against the rules. But for the sake of public safety, you should, just suck it up for a little bit and do it. But a lot of them are a lot of people that are like against the mask are more afraid of like where it leads because they don't like one of the examples I was saying was that like do you have a favorite sports team?
Yeah, the Michigan football,
Who's Michigan's rival?
Ohio State.
Okay. So I didn't know that. I don't know why actually, but so if you were watching, so like if you had to wear a Michigan mask, you'd be set. But if they made
Mhm.
you wear an Ohio State mask, you'd be kind of pissed.
Right.
And to them, it's like, granted, it's just a mask, but to them, it's that same concept of like, I have to do something that you told me, and it's not in me. Which like I understand that concept though too. I mean, it's gray because like it's definitely not government shouldn't do it, but but people need to have more empathy and like care about each other too. So like for overall health, it's important. But it's definitely like I didn't see the debate in it at first, but now by talking to people, I've seen okay, like this, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and like similar to a point you made earlier about people on different sides of an issue caring about different things. Like this mask debate is about two different things. For people who are very much into masks, it's about this is basic, this is about health, this is about not spreading the coronavirus to other people.
Yes,
For people who are against masks, has nothing to do with health. It has everything to do with, where this leads, what this means. It's very symbolic,
it
which is
is.
unfortunate, I think, because this is not the time to be symbolic when so many people are dying. Like California had 11,000 cases today. We set
It did.
records every fucking day with the number of coronavirus cases. And yeah, it's interesting. Honestly, I'll be transparent. Like I went on a date last Friday and I was going to wear my mask the whole time, but then when she showed up, she took her mask off and then I took mine off, you know? And so I think our peers, how many people are wearing masks around us definitely has an impact. And, even though someone like myself, I have like a very clear, in theory, I have a very clear proposition on like mask or no mask, but even in certain situations, I'll not wear one. So I think it's a very interesting issue, and it's unfortunate because it is leading to a lot of unnecessary cases.
It is, and it's just like 2020 as a whole has been such like a polarizing year of like this versus like things that I never thought would be like wearing a mask should never have been like if someone would have told me that wearing a mask would have been like a debate for people to like fight over at a certain point in time in my life,
Yeah.
like, I never even would have thought that would have been a thing. But I'm just like that thing about what you're like going on a date and your date not wearing it. That's definitely like a big like that's a big factor. Like, I don't think I would have worn. I don't know if I would have worn it either on the date. I don't know.
Because it's weird. You're just gonna like they can't see your face,
Yeah, yeah. It's that's definitely like that's interesting, man. It's just such a weird. It's such a great time. It's such a great time to like watch humans. Like if I could like watch us from like a third party like telescope and just observe like how we're doing it because like things are just so different and just so wild. But
Well, I
there's
mean, I
so many
think
great conversations coming from it though.
to your point about like watching humans from a distance, like most people aren't doing anything. Like everybody is spending all their time inside on their devices. Like I think when we look back on this time, this is the acceleration point to all of us spending most of our time inside, living our life through our devices and ordering everything that we need and having it come to our door.
Yeah,
Like this was the future that we knew was coming, but I thought it would take way longer.
me
Like,
too.
so for instance, a few things that I've started doing that I never did before. I order all my groceries now, right?
Wow.
I never saw the use for that. But now I see it because, I'm at home. I want to limit the amount of times that I leave to limit my exposure to the virus. And so now I get my groceries delivered. I've found out that I can stay in touch with so many of the people who don't live in my geographic area over things like House Party, in Zoom, and in FaceTime, And the idea of like setting up a recurring FaceTime or Zoom with people who don't live around me is not something I ever thought about before
Me neither.
coronavirus, you know?
Me neither. I yeah, I never would have thought to use, like, I never would have done a Zoom podcast at any other point in time. And like it was always an idea, but I never would have done that, or FaceTime my friends back, like FaceTiming them, but like recurring FaceTime, that's something I never would have thought about either. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The transition of us becoming more digitally savvy and um, closer, further away but closer through technology is 100% the case, man. Like, such a big deal.
And something I'm thinking about a lot, like in the context of, Plaid, is like I recently moved to Oakland because I thought I was going to be working out of San Francisco, where Plaid headquarters is. But we don't plan on going back to work in the headquarters until like 2021 at the earliest. And so now I'm thinking to myself, like, what is work going to be like in 10 years? Does it make sense for me to live near where I work? And if not, like, should I continue to live in the United States? Like, if I can work for an SF based tech company and make that salary, like, why am I living in SF? Why don't I just go somewhere else? And so, like, those
Wow.
are kind of thoughts that I've never had before that coronavirus has forced me to have.
That's huge, man. That means people can live, if this actually follows that way, then people can live basically anywhere they want to. That means the whole real estate market is going to change too, because like you're not going to have to deal with SF weather or Seattle weather
Yep.
and to make that money.
New
Wow.
York weather.
Yeah, New York, like they're just, you can be anywhere you want making that much money. And that means places that were not that crowded before could be more crowded, or places that are crowded could be less crowded. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think people would flock to the nice weather areas. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to see like LA, San Diego,
Yeah.
Oakland, other places around the world that are in Bali, Indonesia. Like, is there going to be a mass exodus of Americans from America? Who knows?
Who knows, man? And there's so many great, like there's so much good coming out of this. At all of like the gunk and dust that's getting like scraped up from all this happening, there's so many good things coming up, just like conversations happening, and video, like stuff like this happening more often,
Yeah.
people having more chances to work remotely, spending more time with their families. There's a lot of positives that, like, I feel like the media and stuff isn't like showing in this.
Yeah.
But thinking about this whole world in 10 years is going to be nuts. And like these videos like this are going to be like gems, We look
That's
back
what
in
I'm
10 years
saying.
and we're just like, it's crazy, man. It's
That's what I'm
fucking
saying.
crazy. Have you found any new hobbies that you like have enjoyed? I know you've been working and obviously doing your
Mm.
live stream thing, but anything that you really enjoyed other during this time?
Let's see. I've started dancing less, which has been interesting for me, just because I realize now that I love dancing in a studio, and obviously we can't do that. As we've had this conversation about everything going digital, there are certain things that I'm just like, I don't fuck with that in a digital space. I don't like online dance classes. I want to be in person. So that's definitely something. New habits or hobbies. Hmm. I think Twitter is a big one. Like, definitely just like staying engaged with the way people are thinking and the things that are happening. Like, from 2015 to 2019, I was in college, and I tangentially would hear things about what was happening with the Trump administration and politics and the Mueller report and, impeachment, but I wasn't engaged on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the biggest change for me over coronavirus has just been like, now I'm engaged on a day-to-day basis because now I recognize that this is affecting all of us, you know?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Um, everything that's happening with Black Lives Matter, everything that's happening with the coronavirus, I feel like a different I feel like I have a duty to remain engaged in a way that I didn't before. And so that's not really a hobby, but it's a new way that I'm spending my time.
I agree with that. I'm spending a lot more time looking at things politically as well now too, because so much like it literally affects our day to day more now than anything else ever had periodically. So the fact that like it's even like this right now is just so like I'm like, all right, pay attention to this, pay attention to that. Definitely the Twitter as well for me too. Like I spend a lot more time on my Twitter feed than I ever did before. Like I'll look at that, or like I'll reply to this, or like I'll look at this. I'll like scroll through the the trending topics. But yeah, that I try to avoid getting sucked in though. But because I know I've definitely got sucked in a couple of times, but I try to avoid it as much as possible. But did you see that they like hit Twitter today, like the blue check thing? Like that's
Yeah,
fucking nuts.
I'm glad you brought this up. This is a big fucking deal, man. They hacked Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. Like they got some real deal accounts. And from what I've heard, we actually got lucky because they used those accounts to basically do a Bitcoin scam. And so whoever did this made a bunch of money. But I mean, think about the power of having hacked Joe Biden and Barack Obama's
That's what I'm
accounts
saying.
and the kind of geopolitical warfare that could have been waged over those tweets, which one speaks to the power of Twitter and the fact that, the president uses it to communicate with the American people. And two, just the vulnerability of Twitter. I think that's the big thing that we've all been reckoning with. It's like, wow, these social media platforms that have now become critical to the way that we communicate with each other are very, very vulnerable. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that out. That was a big, big deal.
Very fucking vulnerable, man. I saw that and I was like, wait a second. Like Twitter got hacked and like politicians' Twitters got like that is insane, man.
Yeah.
That is literally like that is I don't know what the highest crime is. That's definitely up there.
Yeah, and I mean, it speaks to the way warfare will continue to be waged. Like I've been, in being engaged with politics, I've been very engaged with what's happening between the U.S. and China and the U.S. and Russia. And there's a lot of crazy shit that's happening. Like I don't know if you're aware, but Russia, put bounties on 3 U.S. soldiers. They basically paid the Taliban to kill 3 U.S. soldiers, and Trump did nothing about it. And in any other administration, that would be an act of war, right? And so what I was thinking about was like, okay, what if Obama was president? What if Joe Biden was president? How does war get waged in 2020 between states? And I think the answer is it's cyber warfare.
I
You
think
know,
so too.
it's
I
these
think so
kind of
too.
things. It's like, do you have the capability of shutting off the electric grid for an entire country? And I think, and can you cut off the social media accounts of an entire country? Thinking about TikTok bans and all this kind of stuff. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is the way warfare is played out in the modern era.
It is. I was actually to follow up on that. I was reading up on like some of the things that TikTok was doing, and like as far as them like I don't even know what extent it was, but for some of it was saying they were just tracking all your information on your phone, like location and stuff, the same way everything else does. But other ones
Mhm.
were saying like it was tracking your keystrokes, tracking like if it was on your phone, the people at TikTok or whoever needed a TikTok could get it. And I
Yeah,
was like, yeah, this is definitely like warfare is not just like dropping bombs anymore now. Like
yeah,
it is what's on your phone, what technological things are you using or your citizens using that we can use to exploit them.
yeah.
It's fucking crazy, man. Like, and it's just so much of our lives is based off technology too. Like, I don't even know, like, as far as like the plumbing and stuff, like that's probably all tech. I don't know enough about that to know what it is, but like the water that comes from wherever,
Depends on
all
the
these
electric
things.
grid for sure.
Yeah, like all these things definitely depend on some form of technology thing. Like, what extent can they hack them? If you can hack Twitter, what else can you hack?
Right.
Like my computers, they could hack this, it wouldn't do anything. But the computer that runs the power grid, the computer that runs the prison cells, like I'm pretty sure that's pretty electric as well. Like that's like it. We are in some very interesting times, and I don't have enough technological savviness to even understand like how bad or good it could be.
Yeah. Dude, one thing I want to make sure we talk about is sports. This is something I've been thinking about a lot recently. So like the NBA is about to come back at the end of this month.
Mm-hmm.
And then college football looks like it's, rearing back. And college football is like personally my favorite sport.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something I've been watching a lot. I'd love to get your perspective. Like, do you think it's safe for sports to come back? And maybe we can go like sport by sport and like think about, the risks involved.
I think it's safe for sports to come back as far as them coming back like without fans. I think it's fine
Mm,
because as long as they're getting checked, like they're professional athletes, they got to make a living somehow. You
yeah.
know, it's I don't think like basketball. I think would be fine. Granted, there's a lot of
Mhm.
contact with them, but if
Right.
they're getting checked, like I feel like there's no reason that they shouldn't be able to play. What about
Right.
you? How do you feel about basketball? First of all,
Well, so basketball is definitely a sport where if you test positive, you shouldn't be allowed to play
right? You
at all,
shouldn't be.
which is going to be interesting because it's going to encourage teams to cheat. Like if LeBron tests positive for the coronavirus before game 7 of the NBA finals, like, are they going to make him sit out? I don't
Oh,
know.
definitely not.
I don't
Definitely
know.
not.
Like, and that's a very, very serious question. Like Russell Westbrook recently tested positive. Like there goes the Thunder's chance at winning, this NBA playoff thing. And then like to bring that into football, for college football, obviously, yeah, I don't think the fans should be there, but you should not be allowed to play if you have tested positive for the coronavirus because you are going to spread it to someone in a contact sport like that. And I just think it's going to encourage these teams to do something like, let's say, on Tuesday of the week before Saturday, you tested negative, but on Wednesday, you tested positive. They're just going to report Tuesday's test and they're just going to lie about it. So I think, unfortunately, a lot of players are going to get sick. And there's this whole narrative that like healthy people, like they don't have to worry about it, right? Because the coronavirus isn't going to hurt them. And like for me, like I just don't think we know enough. Like there have been plenty of 12, 15, 18-year-olds that have died from coronavirus. And some of them might have had pre-existing conditions. But I think like the biggest thing about this virus is like it's just so unpredictable and we don't know what's going to happen. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of moving parts here.
There are a lot of moving parts. Yeah, like there's definitely gonna be some shady shit going on as far as like people getting it and not getting it. That seems like it's gonna be like a guarantee.
Yeah.
Um, we can hope for the best that they'll keep everything as safe as possible. But yeah, like I'm pretty sure like some team's gonna have all of it and they're gonna just give it like there's gonna be one team that's gonna fuck everything up
Whole
and
team's gonna have it. Yeah.
everything's gonna be done because of that. But we're gonna hope for the best. They make enough money that I feel like the players themselves will be taking care of themselves the
Well,
best they
some of
can.
them, the LeBrons of the world,
That's
right?
true.
But let's talk about like the ninth player on the Lakers or the 13th, right? I don't think that dude makes enough money that he can just kind of like say, I don't need to play this season, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And uh, yeah, it's another one of those tough things where like I said, I would still encourage them testing it out. Though I think people need sports right now to kind of get them on the same page. I feel like
Yeah,
that's
get
something that unites us a little better. And with but then the people will only be out their house anyway.
yeah.
So I don't. It's definitely a complicated thing. I'm still pro sports though. I would say personally, I think it should come back. What comes with that coming back is definitely going to be a lot of things coming. Like this next half of 2020 is going to be interesting with sports coming back. Football.
Yeah.
Um, is baseball coming back? Well, it's not baseball season anyway.
I think baseball is in the process of coming back. I think it's actually going to be this summer as well. And, to kind of like further this conversation a little, like one thing I've been thinking about a lot is just it was actually something that Joe Budden said on his podcast where he was like, who knew that America didn't have enough money to be out of business for 3 months, right? Like this whole move to reopen, this whole move to get sports started, to open schools, it's not about whether or not it's safe. It's more about there's just so much money involved in these things and we are not willing to take that hit. Even when it comes to college, like a lot of colleges are moving online, but they're not reducing tuition because they're just not willing to take that hit. And it's been like a very eye-opening thing for a lot of us where it's just like America is so greedy and we're so unwilling to save and prepare for the future or prepare for down times, that we're willing to put our health at stake to keep the economy going.
Yeah, yeah. I remember Joe said that too. That was a big moment. Um, but yeah, we don't have enough for 3 months. Like it's definitely been pretty apparent. Um, but shit, man, like yeah, like putting safe, like it's one of those things where like people are like debating between safety and health, and it's definitely scary times. And I also think that I don't know, like it's I think it's bigger than like I definitely see the health thing of it, but I don't know how many other things are going to be affected post corona that like people are worried about too. I don't know, like people as far as people's mental health after this too, like I don't know what number is going to be the number that causes more pain or more suffering. But we should as a country we should have more money saved up as far as us like being able to take care of ourselves if something happens. But we're a spending culture anyway, you know. Like even like uh living check to check fronting if you it ain't oh my gosh, what am I trying to say? Living check to check, you know, fronting, flexing, it's in
Instagram
it is
culture.
America. You know what I mean? Like and we are like the show. The Kardashians are fucking our product. You know what I mean? There's no other country's Kardashians are not created anywhere else. They're like our thing.
That's an
And
American thing.
yeah, so like the fact that like this is the American culture, like that just shows that like you gotta fake it till you're making and all that bullshit. So the fact that we can't afford to just chill for 3 months or 6 months kind of speaks to a lot of how we are as a country as a whole.
And the hope is that, you know, this generation who is going through this as young adults, that one will learn to save money, but most importantly, that will start to value mental health, right? The
100%.
mental health crisis, the mental health impact of coronavirus may in fact dwarf the physical health impact of coronavirus. And my hope is that, you know, this was already happening. Like we were already starting to talk about mental health in 2016, 17, 18, 19, but hopefully forever after that'll be a big part of the discussion because so many people are going through it. And even those of us who feel like we were like super positive, like we're all going through it.
Yeah,
um
man.
so
100%, bro. Mental health is definitely a big it was getting there, but now it's like 10 times more important. So even I feel like I'm a pretty positive mental health, mentally strong dude, but I'm here like some of these days I'm like, fuck this shit, man. So
yeah.
I can't imagine how like people that are a little less sound in their thought process are handling this right now. But I really hope that the kids that are watching this right now, you know, they're learning a lot right now about themselves and about the world around them. So I'm there's going to be a big mental health push after this that I hope that stays with human culture for the rest of their days.
I hope so. I hope so, man. Ooh, let me ask you this. I meant to ask you this earlier. Why did you kind of all of a sudden feel like this was the right time to start doing the podcast again? Because you had said that, you know, for the first half of this year you kind of been off of it. So why now?
So one of the biggest things that was happening, like during this time, like during the whole 2020 process, I just felt like I got new time that I didn't have before, first of all. So
Mm-hmm.
I wanted one of my biggest goals for 2020 was to restart my podcast and um, get back rolling and just like kind of understand because my podcast is still in a very baby beta form. Like I don't really know; it's still trying to find like what direction I want to take it. So I've just so when everything happened, like, you know, I had more time than I did before and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Then I went on my whole TikTok brigade, which was great. I had a lot of fun. But then I realized that like I was putting so much time into making like little content and it was great for the laughs, got a lot of attention, got like it was fun and it was like very like outwardly like validating in a sense. But my main goal was to make people listen to my main goal for my content is to have people listen to me for my podcast.
Right.
And having my podcast, like I was focusing more on the smaller things than on the bigger things.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I chose to come back hard on my podcast now is because I wanted to first of all, I wanted to have more long form content out because
Right.
it's just more depth. Like you just get a better feel for me, a better feel for how I'm thinking. Um, there's just more. There's more opportunity for someone to look at you. There's more opportunity for what I'm trying to do because I want to be a professional podcaster. So like, there's more. There's more in depth than in width. And I was spending a lot of time doing things that were like with things, between like video here, Instagram posts there. So like having more long form content for people to kind of see, which is really important because I just needed more to focus on what I actually wanted to do, what I make content for. You know, I feel like I got lost in the process of like what I'm actually doing it for. And I wanted to, this is a good time because this is a really good question. Let me to give you my pinpoint answer.
Gotcha.
I wanted to make longer form content, and conversation is such an important thing that people need to have during this time that I figured that me taking the jump of me being that person would help hit two birds with one stone. One, I'd be able to have more conversations. I'd be able to listen to how other people are thinking during this time and see how they are. And then I'd have long form content for people to see. So like whether you're watching a clip of me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever, you got like the sample of me, but now you have a full meal you can get as well,
Right.
as opposed to the beginning of the year when it was all little clips were like, okay, this is great, ha ha, ha, this is fun. But then like there's nothing else it's not leading you to anything. The little clips now will lead you to the video, will lead you to the podcast, will give you more opportunity to get a feel for me and what I'm about. And it's just like, it was just more depth, more value, more opportunities.
I feel you. One thing I want to make sure I leave the audience with based on, what you just told me there is like, it's okay to change the vision of what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's
I love the
absolutely
fact
true.
that you want this to be a professional podcast. I think that is also what I want to do at some point. Like, I can see myself 10 years from now continuing to do the podcast and eventually jumping and making that my thing. One thing that's really helped me though, and this comes from Gary, is like, it doesn't have to be the Joe Rogan podcast or nothing, you know? Like, you don't have to have that kind of success that the Joe Budden podcast has had or nothing, right? We all can have our kind of in between. And it's really just about thinking about like, why do you want to do it? For me, it's because I like doing it. For me, it's because I get to have these conversations. We get to develop these friendships. We've never even met in person and
That's
we're
true.
having this kind of conversation. There's just so many reasons to create content as a platform to do the things that you want to do, whether that just be to have conversations, to speak to people, to set yourself up, to be able to do this professionally. And I would just love to leave your audience with the idea that like that can change over time. Like 2 years from now, you can decide that you don't want it to be professional and that you want to make it a little bit more low key. And then 4 years after that, you can be like, no, fuck that. I do want it to be professional, and you don't have to be tied down to the way you thought about it when it started, or most specifically to the way other people feel about it, right? It's
Yes.
always got to be your thing.
Yeah, dude. Yo, you always got some gems in you, man. Like, you're younger than me, bro, but you definitely like, you always drop some shit. I'm like, damn, like he's ahead of his time. He's ahead
Dude,
of
I
his
feel
fucking
like
time.
I feel like Gary is like the foundation of a lot of the way I think about things, and then I translate it into the stuff that I care about. And so I think that's a lot of where the wisdom comes from.
I think so too. He's definitely over the past 18 months like changed my entire philosophy on life and a lot of things too, though, man. So I definitely agree. Rob, how do they find you, follow you, like where they get you at? I know they've seen you a couple times, but for the new ones listening,
For
how
the
do they
new
get you?
ones. Yeah, man. At Robert John Boyle on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and that's gonna be it forever. Once voice becomes a real thing, once we start getting on the voice apps, it's gonna be Robert John Boyle. And so that's where you can find me everywhere and always.
Fuck yeah, man. Rob, thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate it, bro. You always kicking ass. And guys, thanks for listening. Take care.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dom.